Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to episode 17 of Jujutsu Kaisen. So, last time we found out Panda isn't a panda, and got to see quite some really cool battle scenes from him. So, we continue the group battles this time, and I believe this is the final part of the big, like, four-parter for the return of, or for the group battles. I don't know how the solo battle stuff is going to work out after this, but we'll just have to see as we see. But yeah, I don't really know what else to expect going forward. I think we're about to have a battle with Maki and Miwa, so that should be fun. Let's find out. Let's get into this. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything to that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, if I didn't make it clear enough in the reaction itself, I'm going to try and really hammer it in here. The circumstances of one's life, no matter how sad, how depressing, how unfair, how steeped in sexism, or anything else, no matter what the circumstances of one's life, it does not give you an excuse to be a terrible person. How you handle your circumstances is on you. And we see the difference in that with Maki and Mai. They both grew up with the same circumstances. They both grew up in a clan that was steeped in sexist ideologies from the very beginning. A clan that looked down on women just for being women. But especially if those women couldn't be Jujutsu sorcerers. And they viewed it that any woman who did not have innate Jujutsu ability to be, they viewed them to not be able to be a Jujutsu sorcerer, like Maki. Mai had those innate abilities, but was always afraid and timid of the spirits. While Maki did not, but she had amazing physical ability in exchange. But because she did not have the innate Jujutsu abilities, her family, her clan, viewed her as worthless. And Mai was kind of by proxy considered to be, while she had those innate Jujutsu abilities, worthless just by connection. They were both made to serve, well, as servants. And then when Maki eventually left to make it on her own, Mai was forced to kind of pick up the slack and become a Jujutsu sorcerer at that time. This caused Mai to undergo excessively harsh training and be put through basically hell. And I feel bad for her. I do, genuinely. But again, that doesn't excuse the person she's chosen to become. And I say this from experience, because I was, as I've mentioned multiple times on the channel and everything, I used to be kind of a shitbag. I was terrible. I was just an extremely horrible person who believed some horrible things at one time. And it was unacceptable. The things I believed and the things I said, whether towards the LGBTQ plus community, whether in regards to cultural appropriation, and just various things such as that. Just basically anyone who is seen as, I don't know how to put it. I said in the reaction I'm not great at expressing my thoughts too well. Anyone who is there's a phrase for it and I can't think of it for the life of me. Who's often looked down on in society, let's just put it that way. Whether racially or culturally or so on and so forth. And I could use the excuse that it's because of the way I was raised. And it was because of the way I was raised, but it was also on me. I was ignorant, bigoted, and terrible because I chose to still be so. And through different friends on social media and stuff and situations in real life, I realized I had to actively choose to not be like that anymore. I had to realize that it was on me. That my actions, my words, my attitude was all on me. And that I couldn't just blame my upbringing for it. I had to do something about it. I had to prove that I could be better than that. And I did, and I changed. And I'm still always very happy that I was able to change myself and become a better person. And it allowed a lot of discovery about myself through that. But I had to make that decision. I couldn't just steep in the fact that my family made me that way. I couldn't just let them control me in that regard. And the problem with Mai is that she's letting all of this control her. Her hatred for how she's been treated, her fear of the supernatural, and her sorrow over her sister leaving her. All of these are very valid things, but they're just not being implemented properly by her. She's letting them control her, and as such, it's turning her into a bitter, hateful, spiteful, terrible person. And honestly, I hope to God she can turn herself around. Because I very much empathize with her. I very much feel bad for her. But I also very much empathize and feel bad for Maki. And like Nobara pointed out, Maki didn't turn out this way. Maki took that same trauma, that same pain, that same horrible upbringing, and is using it in a more positive manner. So it's all a choice, and you have to be able to make that choice for the better. And I genuinely do hope that Mai can reach that point where she can take a good long look at herself and change. But I don't think she's there yet. Because as we see after the fight and everything, she's still heavily engulfed in her sorrow and her pain and everything. And it's still controlling her. But the fact that she was not only able to admit all of this, but show genuine remorse and love for her sister is a step. It is. But she needs to make further steps. She really does. It's not... She's not redeemed yet. She's still a piece of shit in my eyes. But she's taken the first step, and that is something to be praised. And in general, this episode is something to be praised. This episode is honestly one of my favorites. Not just because of Maki, and I'm a Maki simp like Nobara. But the actual depth that this went into, the intensely horrible backstory that these girls have, as well as the just the moral emphasis on how to handle trauma in a healthy way. And even the action, just everything about this episode was like top tier. It felt special. Like it was taking a moment to really not only develop these characters, but to truly breathe life into them. To make them feel real. And many shows and movies and games and stuff have done this, where it's like you get to that point where it's like the characters feel real. Like you could just... You connect with them so much, whether from personal experience or just, you sympathize and empathize with them. You connect with them so much that you almost blur the line between, fiction and reality. And some people might say that's unhealthy to go that far with, fictional characters and everything, and to see them as, people, basically, as like real life people almost. But I don't think it is. I think it's unhealthy if you like put everything you have in your life into that kind of stuff to the point where it like takes over and ruins your life. Of course, that's unhealthy. But getting super invested in characters to the point of being just feeling that they have that sense of reality to them, that alone isn't unhealthy, I feel. It's investment. It's immersion. It's good storytelling and character writing. But it hasn't like reached a level where it would be like dangerous or bad or anything. It's just immersion. That's all. And the best shows will immerse you in them, in the stories and the characters. The best movies will do that. Why do you think people like cried so hard when Iron Man died in Endgame? When he sacrificed himself? Because people were invested and immersed. They cared about his character. They knew it was just Robert Downey Jr. performing a role. They understood that. But they were still so immersed in the role that they didn't see him as Robert Downey Jr. They saw him as Tony Stark. And they cried when he sacrificed himself. And that is good storytelling. When you can invest your audience that heavily to where the death of a character can make them cry, to where a character's backstory can make them feel for them, even if they still don't like that character, such as in this case. And mind you, I admit, I'm it's easier for me to get invested than for some people. I can get immersed easier, and it's possibly due to my autism. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But it might be. I tend to have a lot of typical autistic things when it comes to watching shows like this, such as hyperfixations and whatnot. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of it too. But at the same time, even though it's pretty easy to get me immersed in characters and shows and stories and all, I still feel like a show has to really hit the right points for me to do that. Because there's shows that other people have gotten super invested in that I haven't been able to, such as like Demon Slayer or Kill la Kill or whatnot. And I stand by my reasons for that. But at the same time, I still acknowledge other people's investment in them. But they don't invest me in the same way. It depends on the show. It depends on how the story and characters are portrayed and everything. So yeah. But this, I talked about with like the first episode of this series, how it surprised me with how good it was. And it continues to do so. And I think one of the biggest positives about Jujutsu Kaisen is the handling of its characters. Every character is treated as important, not just to the story, but as a person. Like, I don't know how it correlates to the manga comparatively, but if it's anywhere near the same, and if that is how the author planned it, then that's just straight up phenomenal. Because that would mean that the original author, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen, wanted to make sure that every character that we meet feels like a real person and feels like they have that much depth and realism to them. And whether for good or bad. Even the characters who I've mentioned I don't like Toto or the Kyoto branch principal, or headmaster, or whatever term you want to use. Characters I actively hate like that. They still feel like real people. I've known people like that. Actively known people like that, not just known of them. So I very much believe them, and the way they're written, the way that they're just integrated into the story and everything, I believe that these are people. I'm immersed. I'm connecting with how the characters are written. And the thing is, other shows do this. Other shonen anime do this. But Jujutsu Kaisen honestly does it to an entirely new level. That I think I've only seen the level of quality of character work like this in a shonen, at least, in One Piece. And One Piece is like known for its character work. That's one of its biggest positives. Its character work, its world building, those are like the big things you think of when you think of the quality of One Piece. So to say that this series is on the level of that, at least in character building, is an exceptional compliment. Especially from me, who is like one of the biggest One Piece fangirls out there. um, I don't know about that, actually. I think that might be an exaggeration, because there's a lot of huge One Piece fangirls and fanboys and fan NBs out there. So I don't know if I would say I'm actually one of the biggest ones, but I'm a massive fangirl for One Piece. Especially with the Wano arc. But you get the idea. I've seen practically nothing that has reached that level in character work. Like, even my other two favorite shows currently, Carol and Tuesday and Owl House, like, as good as they are, even with the characters, I would not put them on One Piece's level. But Jujutsu Kaisen, I would. And I'm not saying overall Juju is as strong as One Piece. I'm just saying in terms of that one factor. Because the character work in this, in this episode especially, was perfection. It was legitimately that good. Nobara shined, Maki shined, hell, Mai shined. Miwa got to shine a little bit, even if she wasn't in a lot of it, and honestly was extremely outmatched. But we saw her talent still. It made sure to, while showing that she was out of her depths in that battle, that she still was extremely talented and worthy of respect. And I've heard people talk about before, comparing this show to Naruto. Hear me out. I've heard people say before that Naruto fails its female characters. That it has all these female characters that are on like the verge of greatness, of being like great shonen female characters, but Kishimoto just didn't do enough with them and do enough of the right things with them. While people make the comparison with this, or more of the contrast with this, saying that this is one of the best shonen for its female characters. And while I agree with the second part there, that this is one of the best shonen for its female characters, if not, well, outside of One Piece, the best, I genuinely don't agree that Naruto's female characters are poorly written. I've never understood that argument. It stems from the entire Sakura is useless thing, which is bullshit. But it's like a lot of people will go on about like all the different female characters in Naruto and just complain about them and everything. And it's just like, I've never understood it, because it's like, the female characters are often some of the best characters in Naruto. Sakura, Hinata, Ino, Tenten. I mean, come on. Tsunade is freaking awesome. It's like, you're gonna seriously say that Kishimoto failed the female characters when you have other characters that are legitimately more weakly written that are guys? Like, I don't know, Sasuke, who is just edgy boy example number 346. Like, everything about Sasuke is like edgy boy just guidelines, to the point of almost parody. It's so by the numbers. And even Boruto continues that with characters like Sarada. Like, I haven't seen a lot of Boruto, but Sarada is honestly awesome as a character. And people are genuinely saying that Kishimoto doesn't know how to write female characters. That's like, the fuck are you on? It's not like they're like the best female characters in shonen, but they're not bad. I know. It's a little weird and random that I'm suddenly sticking up for Naruto here, but I'm sticking up for that. Because again, the female characters were like kind of the best in Naruto, at least in my opinion. And it is opinion. But and at the same time, I can still acknowledge that they are better in this series. That female characters in Juju are just better. Um, but with all of my praise for this episode, this like I kind of mentioned it at the end of the reaction, but I feel like I really need to address this because I've talked about it briefly before, but not really gone into a lot with it. Um, I don't like the Juju strolls. There's some Juju strolls that I may enjoy and find funny and whatnot, but as a whole, I don't like them being in this series. I don't know if like the Juju strolls are like representative of cover images or whatnot in the manga, or where the ideas for them came from. Um, but they actively ruin the mood of certain episodes. With the way this episode ended, having a Juju stroll after is such a massive and harsh tone shift that it kind of ruins the emotion of the episode if you watch it. And on top of that, there's no proper transition between the Juju stroll and the preview for next time, so you end up seeing even just a tiny bit of what you're going to get next time, and it's just that could like hurt you with spoilers and stuff too. But it's like the Juju strolls, it's like, okay, I get it, you're adding a little comedy, and even for episodes that might be a little darker or heavier, that might be a little bit of relief for some people. But I feel like that's actually that's actually a bad thing even in those cases. Like the entire point of the content you're watching is it's supposed to be heavy, it's supposed to be harsh, it's supposed to make you feel shit. That's the point. So when you try to balance that out or whatnot with a lighthearted comedic segment at the end, it destroys the point of the content, of the actual content. It wipes away what you're supposed to be feeling at that moment in the series. And so I've made a decision here, and I don't know if it's going to be an unpopular one, but I'm not going to be continuing watching the Juju Stroll segments. Once the episode ends, that will be the end of the reactions from here on out. Maybe after the season is over, I'll catch up with the Juju Strolls. Once I don't have to worry about it ruining the feeling of the episodes, but it was very apparent in this one that it completely destroyed the tone and mood. And I knew it was going to. I even said that. I was saying, like, let's go watch the Juju Stroll and completely ruin this. And it did. And I knew it was going to, and I shouldn't have done it. I should have just started this with this episode, but I stupidly went to it anyway. And that's on me. But yeah, it's like I really don't like how it's continuing to do that. It takes me completely out of it, and it breaks immersion, and it's so unnecessary. So yeah, from here on out, I'm just not going to be watching them after the episodes. Again, I might catch up when I'm done with the season, but yeah. Also, apparently season 2 is starting this fall. But I don't know if it's going to be immediately dubbed, like if there's going to be a simuldub. I will be obviously waiting for the dub. because this is a series that, again, I've checked out the sub with like reactors and stuff, and I don't mind it, but I so vastly prefer the dub. It's not funny at this point. And it's not even just because it was my initial impressions of this series. I actually genuinely prefer the voices of the dub cast to the original Japanese cast for these characters. I think they fit the characters better. It's as simple as that. It's the same with shows like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. It's just I can't watch it in dub or in sub because I can't stand the voices as much. Or in the case of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, or even like Dragon Ball Z or something, I cannot stand the voices at all in the original Japanese. Like, oh my god, especially Dragon Ball Z, where it's like all the characters just sound terrible in Japanese. But I really don't like them in FMA either. And this one is more split, where it's like I'm fine with them in Japanese. I just so vastly prefer the English. But yeah, this episode was really fucking good. Like, next level fucking good. And again, not just because of simping over Maki. This episode was honestly something special. And I think it's an episode a lot of creators of their own series, manga writers and anime creators and everything, I think a lot of people need to watch this episode. This is how you write characters. This is how you write female characters, especially. And I didn't even talk about, I almost forgot, I didn't even talk about Nobara's entire self-positivity moment. Where she's talking about, I like dressing up all pretty, but I also like kicking ass. I like to be me, and I like when I like see myself that way and stuff, or whatever exactly she said. I don't remember exactly how it went. But oh my god, that was so fucking empowering. Especially as a fucking trans girl. Like, just that entire, like, part of her little speech, I guess you could say, was so empowering as a trans girl who does kind of balance things out in how I act and how I dress and everything. And the things I sometimes like, I sometimes love to dress up and wear dresses and skirts and stuff. Though I don't have many skirts, but still. You get the idea. But I also like stuff that kicks ass and stuff that's typically considered quote-unquote masculine. And it's such an empowering moment to see Nobara kind of stand up for her own self there. To see her come out and basically say that I like both the girly side and the more quote unquote masculine side of things. Those are both me, and I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of who I am, and I love me. And that's just, it's so empowering and so beautiful, and it's like, God, you're really making me love Nobara just so much more. It's like, I already loved her. I already absolutely loved her character, but you're really making me love her even more. And it's almost kind of funny, the fact that it's like the only way that she was stopped in the end was with a sneak attack. It's like Nobara is also excessively powerful. And she's just a really strong, badass, beautiful woman. And I love it. Like, she's awesome. She's just so awesome. I'm kind of giddy over it. Plus, again, she blatantly said in this episode that she loves Maki, and it's like, yeah, love can be taken many ways. There are different forms of love and everything, but I very much choose to see it as romantic. There is so much shipping fuel. So much for these two. So it's like, I'm very much sticking with that. But tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Jujutsu Kaisen? Let me know, and thank you so much as always, for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.